Meeting for Lafayette Township Board of Trustees and Fire District for August 15th at 7 p.m. Roll call for attendee.
O'Neill here.
Fullerton.
Warcola here.
Rubenthal here.
And Law Director Bill Thorne is here. Please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, first order of business, we have minutes pending approval for July 18th, 2022 and August 1st, 2022. Has everyone on the board had a chance to review the meeting minutes?
Yes.
Yes.
Any comments, revisions, corrections, changes?
Not from me.
Okay, and we have a vote for approval. All those in favor, aye.
Yep.
I motion to approve.
I'll second.
All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Okay, meeting minutes are approved. I'll have these down here on the other pile aside. All right, next is our consent agenda, consisting of fiscal report, fire district report, service department report, zoning report, and police report. Has everyone received their copies and had a chance to review them?
Yes.
Yes.
Any comments, questions, concerns?
No.
No.
Okay, we have a motion to approve and accept.
I motion to approve.
I'll second.
All those in favor, aye.
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 Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Okay. All right, next, public participation. Yes, sir, please stand and state your name.
Bob Engel, a question.
Okay.
A couple of months ago, give or take, I saw in the Gazette something about a firing range to be put behind the county home.
Yes.
For law enforcement officials to practice. I haven't heard anything else. Could you update me on that, please?
It's being built.
Pardon?
It's being built. It went through.
It went through, is there a date for?
I
They're working on it.
don't know if they've begun construction yet, but the sheriff came, have they? The sheriff came out and gave a presentation during the zoning commission meeting in July.
Okay.
There's one you missed.
So it's in the
But
works?
yes, it's in the works.
Okay, thank you.
Glad to help. Anything else? Yes.
Hi, Steve Gomonsky. I have a couple questions from the last couple of meetings. As far as the housing developments that we've been seeing going in and around, I just want to make sure I got something clear. We have established that the houses at Lake in 162, that was put on Country Club property. Are the houses that went in on the Wedgewood Estates and on Ryan Road, was that also Country Club property? Does anybody know?
No, it was.
It was not, it was separate.
It was a separate subdivision, had nothing to do with the golf course.
Okay, they didn't own that property.
No.
Okay, that's what I didn't know. The second question I have is, when I don't know what the procedure is for this. When someone's putting in for a variance on one of our zoning our ordinances, is there a form that gets filled out? Is it just a letter that gets submitted? How does that work?
Chris, do you want to address that one?
I honestly, I don't know exactly how it
Justin's
works, but
here.
it would go to the,
With Justin, possibly? Could you address that one?
Yeah, I mean, there's an application for variance that's submitted. Alice takes the application, we post it in the paper to make sure that notice that there's gonna be an application, and then we hold a public hearing where the variance is discussed, and then the board renders a decision based on whether to approve or not, based on a number of factors that are,
Okay.
outlined statutorily.
When, on that form, are there like requirements that need to be fulfilled when requesting the variance? Such as, a couple things I wrote down, I don't know if it's pertinent or not, like, how does this variance help the township? How does it help the neighborhood? Is it causing any type of nuisances such as noise, traffic, safety, anything of those, in those areas, is it required to address those issues on the application?
I'll leave that to,
Okay, I didn't wanna.
no, go ahead.
Specific questions, no. But all of the things, or at least most of the things that you mentioned, are part of the decision-making process, the things that the discusses, the things that are discussed in the open meeting and are part of the decision-making process. And I can get you a copy of those if you.
I'm just curious.
Yeah,
on how
yeah.
it worked, yeah.
Yeah.
I was just, my question to the board would be is maybe we could, I know there's nothing we can do about the past, I'm looking to the future. And if we could maybe have something on those applications where the person who needs the variance is addressing it and say, okay, why do I need this? This is why I need this. And have everything in writing so that we understand why they're requesting it. That's my question.
If I may, Marty, there's such a thing called the Duncan factors, which addresses items like that. There's, I believe, 7 questions, and part of those questions is how does it affect and addresses those things. And the board uses the Duncan factor in addition to what the applicant says on the form, application form, to make a judgment and ask questions to the applicant as to why this should be and why they cannot conform to the existing
In some other
zoning.
way.
So it's the Duncan factors, and that's something that came out of a lawsuit years and years and years ago. And I believe the higher revised code, right?
I was going to say, the Duncan factor is a result of Supreme Court action. There's actually 2 sets of criteria depending on what the nature of the variance you're requesting. If it's a simple area variance such as a height or yard width, the Duncan factors apply. If you're trying to put something in that's not authorized at all by the code, it's a whole different process, a higher standard, very rarely granted because at one point, one of the criteria is you have to show why you can't put anything in that's legal. So you basically have to show there's something so unique about your property that the zoning code is just kind of worthless as applied to it.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Yes,
So, you guys obviously all got my email at this point.
I'm sorry, name
Anna
please.
Burmeister,
Okay,
659
thank you.
Lafayette Road. You guys all got my email at this point about my safety concerns, and as far as the comprehensive plan and the zoning resolution. But I've received no responses other than Chris mentioning moving forward. Has there been any ESA, phase 1 ESA studies on the property, any wetland studies that
I don't know if they've done a phase 1 on that property or not, but generally, I think that's driven by a lender. A lender would require a phase 1.
okay. Where are we at with the safety aspect with this property?
Yeah, I talked with Odot actually for a number of things. It's on our minutes down, but I'll just go ahead and talk about the safety aspect. I did talk to Julie down at Odot in the Ashland office and told her our concerns about safety with the Dollar General turning lane. They're gonna widen the road, it's gonna be closer to houses, and none of that really seemed to matter. And I said, okay, well, there's a school there. Okay, is it a chartered school? I don't know. If it's a chartered school, they can apply for a 20-mile-an-hour speed limit sign and get it pretty quickly, but I don't know that they're chartered at this point. So I said, well, there's a slight hill and speeders, can we get it down to 35? And so I talked with her long enough on the phone. She said that they would put together a speed study and see what they could do, and they said they would stay in contact with us. But I was hitting her with a lot of questions, and they don't make the laws, they just have to follow them, and it's the State House that we need to really push to get a lot of those big things changed. But she did say that they would put a study together and try to see what they can do to lower the speed limit.
So outside of the speed limit, I mean, at Dollar General building in general. So as far as all the fire code violations.
Well, I didn't
that
talk
are
to her
anywhere
about
in
that.
the state or the country, there was just 3 Dollar Generals in Georgia today that were fined $1.3 million. And the assistant secretary for OSHA said, let me quote it, because it's great. Dollar General continues to demonstrate a willful pattern of ignoring hazardous working conditions and a disregard for the well-being of its employees. Despite similar citations and sizable penalties and more than 70 inspections, the company refuses to change its business It's business practices, and this is coming directly from OSHA. How is that not a safety concern for our township?
I think that is a safety concern, but it's not something that the township can enforce. The township just can't do it.
So we just wait around and wait for someone to get trapped in a building with a locked exit, and then, oh, what do we do?
Oh, most of
Nothing.
the times with your fire department, and there's real things to be taken care of.
Because I can guarantee we will all be walking in there and making phone calls because it's, I mean, we're gonna watch that building like a hawk, it needs to be safe. And they don't care about safety.
I think,
I have reports from state fire marshal for a store in, I think it's Warsaw, Ohio, where they were called for a complaint. They went and cited them for 7 violations. It took them 6 months to comply with those violations that were fire code violations on the state level.
And that's unfortunate. I can't refute that. I don't think anybody up here can, but that's, the township just, that's not their area. That's not our, we can't do anything. That's not a township rule.
It's not dangerous, it's not
No, I'm not saying
hazardous,
it's not dangerous. I'm just saying
which
that,
is in our comprehensive code and our zoning resolution.
yeah, but it's hard to say you can't do something on the chance that you're not going to conform. As long as they're
It's not
conforming.
preemptive, it's imminent at this point. If you look at them as their business practice from OSHA directly.
I see what you're saying, and I sympathize, believe me. But you can't just say, hey, you can't build here because you're probably not gonna operate it correctly.
They're not going to operate. All signs point to.
And you may
Talk to
be,
any fire department, talk to Seville about their battle with them,
No,
talk
I-
to South Euclid about how their stores were so disgusting, they signed with building codes, then they sent their fire department in, and then they went to OSHA because they still wouldn't comply. So that's what we want here, there's nothing in our comprehensive code or zoning resolution to keep that terrible practice out here. But no, let me, have you guys read the comprehensive code?
I'm
It's
not,
76 pages, but I've read it.
I'm not
Mine
gonna,
is right here.
I believe you. I'm not gonna say that I'm a pro at it, but yes, I have. And it's still not in our, we can't, those are outside of our,
It's not outside of anything. Which section?
The safety concern, what you accept.
I mean, all of what I sent them in an email, that,
Well, that wasn't email, I didn't get the email.
no.
Serious.
Why
Okay.
can't the township say we don't want them here?
I'm sorry,
and they're not here?
I'm not trying to be rude, but could you please state your name so we can,
Bob Compagnon,
okay?
why can't we just tell them we don't want them here and keep them out of here?
the township can't, but
Why not?
there's nothing against you saying
All
that
right,
you
so
don't.
that means if they start to build, I can sit out there in my truck or stand there and say, you can't come in here unless you run me over, and then he's gonna come and arrest me for being in their way, right?
I'm not saying that, but you could try to contact them beforehand.
One of the things that we talked about before, and Bill, correct me if I'm wrong, or Alice, correct me if I'm wrong, whether we like the business or not, and I think it's pretty obvious that the group here does not want the business in there, for a lot of reasons.
Drive up
I
and down
understand
the
that.
streets of Lafayette Township, you see signs in everybody's front yard.
I understand that. What I'm saying, though, is it's zoned, so that business or that type of business is allowed to be there. We
Well, who
can't,
zoned it that way?
It's been that way.
it's been that way for how long?
30 years.
At least 30 years. I don't know if it was
It
before.
it isn't something that just happened with the last board or the last 5 years, the last 3 years. It's been that way forever. The land has sat there, not been used. Now it is. Now it is. Whether we like it or not, that's what it's zoned to do.
How big an acreage is it?
right now, just 3 acres.
2.9 acres.
And what I'd said before is, and I think what Ally is doing is commendable. You put together a grassroots effort that says, we don't want it in here. You get enough people that say that, like you said, all the signs that go out there. If I'm a business owner starting, I don't want to come into an area where everybody hates me.
Yeah, but they don't see it that way. They
Well-
don't care.
But if they know they can go a mile away outside of the township and people won't care over there, maybe that's what they would do. I'm not saying they would or they wouldn't. But right now, legally, we can't prevent it. Bill, am I correct in that?
Right, it meets the zoning code,
We,
You can't
can't
prevent it, you can't write letters, you can't talk to the state, you can't talk to anybody.
Well, they are
People
talking,
are-
they are talking
people
to
are-
them, but it's not the zoning issue. That's why they get, as Ty said, you have to get other agencies involved. The fire department, the highway department, those are the
Al's
provisions
already
they're
got those
violating.
people involved. Can't you guys get behind them and say, hey, and help?
All this whole comprehensive plan says about how you guys are all about our voices, and you're all about our input in
And the
the township,
comprehensive
but no one
plan
back
is
us.
just what it is, it's a plan. The current code was adopted based on the interpretation given to that plan by the board at the time. They felt it met those criteria. You may not agree at this point, and the plan can be changed. But when the code was adopted, it's just a plan. It says guidelines. You can't use that to enforce the zoning code. The actual legal document is the zoning code. That's what it is.
Okay, so.
In our zoning resolution, it states, "No land or building in any district shall be occupied or used in any manner which creates or contributes to the existence of conditions which are dangerous, injurious, harmful, noxious, or objectionable,
Right, and that's what they
or
said.
which may otherwise adversely affect surrounding areas or adjoining premises."
Right.
So at what point during their business dealings that it becomes unsafe, then does the township have any type of?
Township doesn't have direct authority. They have to get
So
the fire, they have to get
what does that mean
the,
then?
that means that it's not, just because it's
So
zoned
point
for
you-
that,
No,
no.
no,
What
please,
it
please
means
let him finish
is,
first, okay,
that
please?
just because it's zoned for a use does not mean that it can ignore all the other rules and regulations. So if they put in a legal use, even a house, if you violate the fire code, the house can be condemned, the business can be, but it's not the zoning people that do it. It's another agency, the health department. If you've been in other meetings, they've had residential people coming in, they're complaining about their neighbors, it's a nuisance, a hair. Trustees can't do anything directly, they've got to drag the health department in, the police department, the fire department in to declare it to be a nuisance or a hazard or whatever it is. Then at some point, they can't have some authority if those agencies get involved. But it's not directly a zoning issue.
But you want?
Well, I was just gonna, to follow up on what Bill said, Justin Paroli, 5637 Birchwood. In getting other agencies involved, and clearly it's not just our community that has an issue with Dollar General. And I know it's also probably tricky to be preemptive, but is there anybody to contact at the state level that could restrict Dollar General's ability to continue building anywhere in the state, as long as they continue to behave the way that they're behaving? Because I'm sure there, like we've talked about, there's other communities that are getting issues, that the state fire marshal's writing complaints all the time. Is there, who would be the state agency to reach out to try to take that type of action?
There'd have to be some kind of, and it would be maybe OSHA or some of those, I'm not sure, because I haven't looked into it. But after you say they'd have to file some kind of injunction against the company, the
Right.
parent company, to stop them and close them down. An individual store, if it's found to be in violation of the fire code or those codes, can be closed down if it gets bad enough.
Right, but I think where Ally was going with her comment, and she can correct me if I'm wrong, but is the idea that, yeah, it's hard to say that somebody that's gonna come in and build a new person or something like that, we think they're gonna do these awful things, but they may
Right.
not. But it's not like there is a lack of reasoning behind why people
No,
feel that they will.
but I don't know how many
History.
stores they have or how many have been subject to that.
There's about 500 stores.
Huh?
There's about 500 of them.
500?
So-
In Ohio.
No, I don't know where, but about 500. So when you've got numbers like that, even a dozen stores having problems is percentage-wise.
Yeah. I know.
And you can't refuse somebody that meets the code because you think they're going to break the law of whatever law. You have to
With their
wait
track record.
until till they break it. I mean, otherwise, the police can look at you and say, hey, you look pretty scuzzy, I'm gonna arrest you because I know
Well, or the
that you're
people that
doing
complain about their neighbors who have, doing certain things, you're gonna stop all residential development. It just, that's not the way it works.
So I'm Chase. So here's my question, I guess. And so I've been to, this is like the third or fourth meeting, and I asked a question at the very first meeting, and I didn't get an answer. And then I asked a question at the second meeting, and I still didn't really get an answer. And then, so now we're all kind of circling back, right? So I think everybody's well aware of what the zoning is now on this commercial land, right? We're all aware that Dollar General fits the parameters of that zoning. But I think what everybody's kind of confused with, and let me just state what I'm confused with and what I'd like to know is really the answer to that first question. And that is, are you guys willing to work with somebody if they approach you with a way of changing potentially the way that we have rules written in as zoning regulations, but we don't really use them because we can't really use them? You know what I mean? So, and then maybe we should find out from our residents, the people that live here, right? We should maybe have a little more transparency and a little more interaction with them when a big box store, a little box store, landscape change of a dramatic effect, anything like that's gonna happen, you know what I mean? Like maybe we just find an easier way to, I guess, work on that, right? I'm really tired. We had a crazy weekend. My brain's not the best right now.
I think the zoning code can be changed.
Correct.
Yeah, it's unfortunately not gonna work in this circumstance, but for
I'm well
future.
aware of that.
Right.
I'm well aware
Right.
of that. I think what I guess, I don't know, I'm not really getting my foot across here.
Yeah, what you're saying, there's different kind of uses that can go in. Generally, a permitted use has to meet certain established criteria, and if it meets them, it comes in. And I know some of the people here don't like it, some people, but there's also conditional uses. A conditional use can be authorized for type uses where you're not sure whether it's gonna fit or not, and you wanna look at it individually. Conditional uses can be written into the code. In your code, they've been written out because people didn't like the results of those. But if the position you're taking, that would be the kind of thing that you would be looking for. That you can't have a business use in this area unless it meets certain conditional criteria. Those criteria be some of the things you mentioned, and you would look at the individual store, the landscaping, and this kind of thing. Could be done. It requires a zoning change. Every zoning change requires multiple public hearings, public participation, and it gives an opportunity to go to the ballot if in fact the change is not liked. But it's a time-consuming process. People have to initiate it. It has to be initiated by someone. Generally, it's by a property owner in the area that's affected, so if the people down here don't like that zone anymore and they want to change it, those property owners could petition to change that to something else, or to make it, like you say, conditional or something like that.
Jason, was that your question, or was it more, if something's gonna come in, how do you guys get a heads up?
No, it's not really just a heads up. I mean, if you.
I just wanna make sure I understood your
I mean,
question.
if you perform your civic duty as a citizen of the United States, you know what I mean? It's your duty to get a heads up, right? So I don't think, you guys may not, I think you guys probably do a pretty good broadcasting, for a township. You guys are hip, getting the news out.
Didn't know about this a year and a half ago, except for the fact that it was
How do
under the radar.
It's.
Wait, we have one question here first, please, my good sir. You've been really patient with your hand back there. I've got you next.
Steve Demosky. Two things. It seems to me like you keep saying our hands, as a township, our hands are kind of tied on things. Everything seems to be reverting to the state. Even when you said that, Odot's looking at things, the safety issues stuff. So why don't we extend an invitation to our state rep to come here and listen to us? And that way he can go to Odot and say, look, these people are real concerned. Start taking the safety aspect into a little bit heavier consideration.
Thank you.
You've got a school, they said, oh, if it's a charter school, we can knock it down to 20. But if it's not, we can't. What sense does that make? The kids are the kids, whether it's a charter school or not. And the second thing is, and I think what's frustrating a lot of people here, we don't seem to have a lot of preventative options available to us. Everything has to be a reactive option. We have to wait until something happens before we can try to stop it. By that time, it's too late. I think we'd like to try to maybe see if there's some way we can, and again, this is moving forward, have some kind of preventative things that people are going to say, we don't like this, what can we do to prevent it from coming in? What's written in our codes, or maybe there's nothing there, maybe we have to get something written in our codes.
Well, there are things that are preventative. In this particular instance, what would you?
Well, I would think in this instance, I'm thinking past history should play a huge role with this company.
Okay.
And based on past practices, we should be able to prevent them from coming in. Because as Ally said, I don't think it's a matter of if, I think it's a matter of when and how bad it's going to be.
Now, this may make you really, and I forgot you, I got you next. This may make you really upset with me, Ally, but you brought out several really ugly ones. But Alice, you said there's like $500 generals?
Approximately.
If I'm on the Dollar General side and I say, you're right, this one are horrible, and here's the other 400 that are no different than any other store. And I'm not saying that's the case, not at all.
So there's,
But-
over the last 5 years, there's 156 OSHA violations countrywide. We are 11% of that for the state of Ohio.
Okay, 100
So
and,
it's more than just a few out of.
okay,
Right.
So if you don't know the numbers, you can't.
And that's just OSHA. That's
You don't
when
know.
this was
So if you don't
escalated to
know.
OSHA.
all right, okay,
So
so
this
the
is when
hun,
it
you
was
said,
escalated to OSHA. If you contact any local fire department, there's fire code violations.
okay. So, but you said 156 violations or 156 stores that have violations? I just want to make sure I understand.
It's
And I'm not trying to put
156 OSHA violations.
Okay, so you could have, could have had 155 of them in one store. I mean, you don't know if it's a whole bunch of stores or
don't.
just, okay.
No.
And I'm not trying to put you on the spot, that's great
No,
information.
I get it, but if you,
Okay,
you can talk to Fire Marshal Crumley. He has to keep going back to the one in Lafayette. You can talk to anyone in the Seville, Guilford Fire Department. That one's been a nightmare.
I think that's kind of the point, is, and again, we can't.
Sure, Spencer's the
we
same,
can't change
it's,
it.
so it's
Yeah.
not only 10 of them out of 500.
right, and I was taking the extreme example the other way, but,
I'm saying yes, on OSHA is when, OSHA is called in as a last resort, listen, they're not complying, let's hit them where it hurts with a $1.3 million fine. Before that, it's taxing a local fire department.
okay.
So if you want, I can pull Spencer, I can pull all 3 in Medina, I can pull all of those, there's your track record. Because
Okay.
all of them will have repeated fire code violations for things that put people's lives in danger on a daily basis.
Thank you.
Would we be able to give Mr. Thorne's comment maybe on what Steve had said though about adding something like that? Because that's kind of the point, thank you Steve, by the way, for you had said, that's kind of the point I was at with, preventative versus, and again, it's only because this was, a year and a half ago, I read through the whole entire zoning code. And I said, oh bummer, this works, right? I'm kind of in the industry of site development, so I'm well aware, right? So I look at my crap, this works. But I guess back to what Steve says, man, I'm just totally out of it today, guys. I totally apologize, I went way too hard this weekend.
I think in response, I don't mean to cut you off, but that's what I'm saying, that would be a conditional type of thing. Yeah, you could put in that this type of use in this area has to be conditional. We'd have to have a public hearing, public input.
Sure, so would that be like unprecedented in your opinion?
No.
Brunswick just did it,
No.
Brunswick just did it, for
So
redundancy.
basically all you need, and this was the question I had asked before, but I think it just got glazed over so because everything was just so hot topic at the moment. But, so if we were to, come at you, or a group of few people were to come at you with some proposal, I guess, you guys be willing to work with us maybe on looking at it,
If
right?
it's properly presented to the zoning commission, they are required legally
Sure.
to start the process. Doesn't necessarily they'll approve it and pass it, but they've got to start the process. So the property owners in that zone want to change the zoning on that and make it a condition or whatever it is, they can initiate a process.
Hold on. Back-
But what do we have to do to start that process?
You'd have to make an application to amend the zoning code.
And any resident can do that?
No, it would need, unless they haven't had well said, generally it depends on where you want to put it. If it's that area, it should be residents from that area that would initiate it. Then the public hearing starts and the whole public would have an opportunity to have input at that point. But it's generally a landowner who's affected by the change that starts the change. So those people that were saying that they had their property was owned both ways, they could use it that way or not. If they want to change it, they could initiate the change.
So then Ally and Chase, it's up to you guys to start the thing, and we gotta get behind it.
Chuck Turner, directed towards Mr. Thorne's, would there be any benefit in calling the State Attorney General's Office Consumer Complaint Division? Based on the information they have with all this past history of all these other stores, maybe an injunction can be filed based on, there is a Consumer Complaint Division.
Right, I don't know that-
General's Office.
Yeah, I don't know if those are consumer complaints, they're more like OSHA complaints, fire code violations, and again, they can file for injunctions on those violations as well.
Well,
I'm
what
not
I'm
sure if
thinking
you-
is, I mean, obviously, the state AG's office has a little more clout to file injunctions and so forth, and if there's a pattern, especially in this state,
No, I'm just
they're
saying-
saying, I don't, you know, they have the information, but is that a, I mean, they have 1-800 number, and I'm just wondering if you, as a legal person, have had any dealings with them, or no?
No,
That would be beneficial to try to pursue that.
I've not had dealings with them. I'm not sure it would be the consumer complaint division I'm saying about. I'm thinking it would be more, you go to OSHA, you go to the fire marshal's office, or one of those state agencies that have the overall authority for the
Well,
area.
I don't know how the fire marshal's office would be able to do anything, because the place hasn't even been built yet. You know
Well,
what I'm
that's
saying?
true.
I mean, the building hasn't, they
But on the
haven't-
other violations, if it is truly a statewide thing, they might be able to file an
I
injunction.
just thought, you know, you might know, or,
Yeah, and it's hard to make a consumer complaint against a business that hasn't started.
well, they haven't started here,
Right.
but they're showing a pattern of the same company that controls the one that's gonna be put here
Right.
with all their bad stuff in the past, so.
Quick question. You said that if somebody wanted to start on a petition, it has to be,
Not a petition.
I'm not a petition, but for a
Rezoning?
change in the zoning. It has to be the people in that neighborhood. But what if you wanted this to be a township-wide change? We don't want to, now in that case, do you get petitions of everybody and attach it to your request, or?
Well, it depends on what you want to change.
Which is what, that's what I asked it, like.
This is kind of, I think this is kind of what Jason's trying to get to.
I mean,
Yeah,
you
I'm not
could,
saying this particular, I've been over this since December, okay?
no, but he said everything. I mean, you talk about residential zones and everything of that kind of stuff.
What I'm looking for is better ways for the community to have a say in what goes in and what doesn't. And I understand that we have appointed officials, right, the appointed or whatever.
But the community already has a say.
Okay,
Those changes, those codes that are in place now went through multiple hearings,
I get it.
multiple agencies.
Okay.
They were passed, they were able to have been challenged at the ballot if they didn't like it. It wasn't, or if it was unsuccessful. So at this point, the presumption is that those people adopted it, did it appropriately, and the people liked it. If you don't like it, you can't approach the zoning commission to redo those things. The zoning commission itself can initiate some changes. So that would be another way to do it. The comprehensive plan can be redone to do away with a town center area if you'd like to do it, and you could try to do that way. There's multiple ways to do it, it just takes some time to do. It can be done.
Is there any type of trigger, you said these ordinances were put in like 30 years ago?
Well, the.
Our zoning stuff, okay.
Somewhere.
Is there any type of trigger that says, hey, look, after 30 years, we gotta review these things? Because what was put in 30 years ago may not be applying now what we want.
That is the function of the zoning commission. They listen to complaints that people bring them. They are supposed to be continually looking at the code to see if it's still current. Your comprehensive plan is generally redone every so many years, 10 years or so, I think.
So has anything been triggered by our meetings then? Because obviously there's a lot of complaints there about
I
it.
don't know. That I don't know. I'm not involved in that part.
Who is?
You go to the zoning commission. I don't know if anybody's been to them and approached them about any of the complaints and asked them to do anything. But they're the body that initiates the changes. Trustees have ultimate authority currently, but it's the zoning commission that starts it. Then it goes to the county planning commission. There's a whole legal process.
Can we get a zoning person to come to one of our meetings and listen to us then?
The zoning commission meets monthly,
Second Tuesday.
second Tuesday of the month, here at 6
Well, couldn't
o'clock.
you just bring the person here instead of making us go to 2 and 3 different meetings a month?
It's
Let
a
them hear
board.
what we gotta say.
It's a board.
So in other words, getting you guys to help us out and get behind us and say, hey, you guys know all the people that gotta be talked to, but you don't wanna help us get those people here so we can talk to them, correct?
Oh.
No.
Well then, what are
Nobody
we
said
gonna
that.
do to get you guys and girls behind us to help get rid of these people? What do we have to do?
Well, I think the first thing you want to say is not to get rid of, it's to work with them, to try to get something that's a good working relationship.
We don't want them here at all.
Well,
You got one on Lafayette, closes every day early, and you can't, nothing's good. You got another one right down the road. None of them are any good.
I believe it was,
There's cat litter.
I believe it was the first meeting when this first came up, that one of the things we requested was that Trustee O'Neill, Law Director Thorne, and our zoning inspector, Strojan, would try to make contact with Dollar General, because some of the concerns were tearing things down, and just having it be an obtrusive eyesore as it's getting dropped in. And what can we do to make sure that the landscaping is done properly, the building looks right, and things that will be kind of within our power to do. So
And what happened
I know
with
it's-
that?
That's a good question.
That's actually what I wanted to talk with Ally tonight after, I want to arrange for a meeting after this meeting.
Has the zoning certificate been signed?
You're asking if we could meet regarding,
I wanted to talk to you guys about,
I was gonna talk more about that, but yeah, if you're gonna talk, that'd be great.
yeah, that's exactly what I wanted to
Yeah,
do.
that's my last
I mean,
question.
it doesn't necessarily have to be official, and I don't, but it's more or less going to be probably requested from Dollar General, hey, will you do this? There's a pretty big groundswell of folks against the Dollar General as it is. Would you be willing to sit down with us, or, something along those lines?
You know, one of the things that is here working in your favor thank you. One of the things that's working very heavily in your favor tonight, very strongly in your favor tonight, is we have somebody from the Gazette here. Now, the Gazette's here, they can take this story back, as they did the first time, and put a nice article in the paper to start generating potentially more opposition, and get a larger following that says, we don't want this here. The more people that don't want something to happen, the better chances it won't. Or at least it'll happen with a softer edge, something that's acceptable. Legally, there's some things you can do and some things you can't do. We cannot, what you want us to do is come in and say, get out, you can't be in here. We can't do that. We cannot do that.
Even if it's a safety concern for the township?
So hold on, so Mr. Marshall, last question I guess I have, I gotta try to see if I can get this out, so. All right. So you. I'm dealing with some like insane, I have an injury and it's,
All right.
it's there.
Anything else? Yes.
Rich DeWard, 7410 Lake Road. Mr. Thorne, could you explain what spot zoning is and why we can't do it?
Well, spot zoning is zoning a particular piece of property inconsistent with the neighboring properties. The law requires zoning to be uniform. Uniform for like businesses and like zones. You cannot pick one business or one piece of property and zone it inconsistent. That's spot zoning, you can't do it.
Okay, if we did do that, what would happen?
Well, I guess if the property owner would probably challenge you and you would lose.
Okay.
Yes.
I was just thinking, we can keep certain businesses out, as we've said in the past, an adult bookstore, things of that nature, right?
No.
And
No.
you can't keep them out. I thought we said a couple minutes ago we could keep them out.
No.
Yeah.
No, you can put them in specific areas where
Right.
where they
Yeah.
will choose not, you create.
Okay, that's
zones.
not what I got out of the meeting a couple weeks ago.
That's
Yeah,
interesting,
okay.
yeah.
You have to allot area to them, but you put it in a place where nobody would build, so that you're, and everybody.
And would that be based on like their past, any problems associated with that type of business or the nature of that business? Is that basically why we would do that?
Well, that's why you're allowed to.
Well,
do that.
okay, I would say, why can't you apply that same philosophy to Dollar General because of their past
If
practices
the
of
state,
avoiding
if the
safety
state would
issues?
give us that authority, then you could do it. We don't have the authority
But you can do it with a bookstore.
because they've given us the
No,
authority.
you can do it with an adult bookstore.
An adult, I'm sorry, an
Well,
adult
but that's
bookstore,
why
yeah.
the state's protecting, allowing communities to protect kids from pornography and stuff like that, but they're not gonna protect.
But it's okay to get trapped in a burning building, that would be all right.
That's why the fire
Well,
code
then
is
we
there.
have to get somebody from the state down here. Because somebody's gotta start listening to us.
Okay. Anything else? Yes, sir.
Justin Paroli, 5637 Birchwood. Marty, we spoke a couple of weeks ago, I believe you called following up on public records requests. And I told you I'd get back to you if there was anything that was missing.
Okay.
In looking through things, the only things that I've asked for that I haven't received are the meeting minutes from the special meeting on March 30th. And they're not posted on the website.
March 30th, is it?
And then the other thing that we had discussed was, we talked about spending budgets or financial forecasts that were done. I have the tax budget that was done just recently, and then the appropriations that you guys passed at the March 30th meeting. But outside of that, there's nothing else. You mentioned that there might have been some like line item budgeting that you guys did, or forecasting. If you guys have any of those, I've got an open request. I just wondered if you guys had anything additional on those.
Well, the meeting minutes, you're sure they're online?
Uh,
I thought we had everything on there. Okay.
Well, and they've also never been discussed or approved at any meeting in any of the other minutes that have been approved, so I don't know how you.
For March 30th?
The special meeting on March 30th,
Okay.
where you guys passed the appropriations.
Okay. I'll check and see what happened to those then.
Okay.
God, I hope I recorded them. Okay.
That's it.
Oh, thank you.
Thanks.
And by the way, thank you for the input on the BZA information. I appreciate that. Thank you. All right. Any other questions? Anything else from public? Okay, moving on. Fiscal officer, anything outside of the consent agenda?
Yes, we have a cemetery deed to be signed, please,
Okay.
by all three. And then also a purchase order for a cut quick piece of equipment. I don't know exactly what it is.
Yeah.
But
Oh, that's the, okay.
yes, $411. Other than that, that's it.
Okay. Service department. Anything outside of the consent, oh, I thought that was, anything outside of the consent agenda? Ty?
Oh, I did have two things I wanted to talk about service. Rick, our service director here, got a demo zero-turn mower, 96-inch wide cut. And the reason he did that is we have a ton of mowing in Lafayette Township, way more than most townships do. And we do it ourselves. We don't hire it out like a lot of other townships do. So just trying to cut back on time. So they let us borrow it, use it for free, and it proved to do well. We're not ready to talk about buying it or negotiating a price or anything, but I just wanted to let everyone know that we were demoing that for a couple of weeks, and it did seem to work out pretty darn well. So it saved us quite a bit of time, so it might be something we'll want to talk about later on down the line.
Okay.
And then also, since January, we knew we needed a budget for a new truck, a service truck, dump truck. And so we've been doing that, but we've also been looking and getting quotes, figuring out what's out there, what's not, what's available. And what we've been finding is a lot of the dealerships aren't even taking orders until October. And then it takes, then you put your order in, and then it takes till maybe 2024 to even get the cab and chassis. And then after that, if you pick, say, Henderson to do the back end of the truck, the dump truck and the plow and the fenders and all that, that's another 8 or 9 months down the road. So if we were to order one in October, we wouldn't be able to use it till 2025. And so that's at about $112,000 for that truck. So a 2023 F550, that's what that would be, just roughly. So then Rick found this other truck at a dealership. It's a 2022 It's used, it's got about 12,000 miles on it. It's a F650, so bigger than the 550. It already has the dump bed on it. It has poly fenders, electric plug to the back. And that is for sale for $84,000. Now, then they would take our truck in as a trade-in at $30,000. So then we said, okay, well, how much is a brand new 650? So we kind of have an idea. So the cab and chassis is $115,000. By the time you equip the back, you're somewhere around $163,000. But the unfortunate part is it's over our $50,000 threshold. So what I would like to ask the board, if we can put an ad in the paper to bid this truck out, and if someone can come in lower for that particular truck and it's available, then, you know, obviously we would go with them. But right now, that's going to save the township a ton of money. And it's a good, clean truck.
I think it's a good option. It's a very
You
good
talk
option.
about putting out to bid with the same specs that we did right
Yeah,
now.
put the same specs out, just so we can compare apples to apples.
And we would also include the trade-in as well, to get an overall price.
Overall price, including the trade-in, yep. Yep. Trucks are just, it's a disaster with the economy. Ford is out of steel. They can't even make new trucks because they get their steel from China, so they can't even get steel. So anyway, it's a huge, huge problem, and we kind of lucked and tripped on this truck here, but we have to wait our 2 weeks, right, Bill?
Yeah.
Advertising to bid it out.
The advertising, we use generic bids, it can't be a brand or anything like that, but you can put a certain year limit on it, no older than such, no more miles than this. General provisions indicate that you want to trade in the other truck, explain what that is, et cetera. NCU comes back with the lowest responsible bidder, so.
Right, and did you find out what circulation?
I understand they are still publishing, so yes,
Okay.
we can still use the Gazette at this point.
Okay, all right, so we can put that in the Gazette.
According to the report, so.
So, yeah, that's where I'm at with the new truck. I'm just trying to look out for it, because we need it. We put a lot of money in that F550, and it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to keep doing that when we have a decent truck here, so.
And what, just for reference, what year is the one we're getting rid of? Is that a 12?
It's 10 years old.
Okay.
It's a 2012.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, 2012, yeah.
Hard miles.
Yeah.
Okay.
So do we need to ask for a vote after the 2-week waiting period?
Yeah, you gotta wait the 2 weeks, see if you get in, how many bids you get, who the other is, then you have to evaluate those bids, and then the board has to decide which bid they want to take.
Okay, so that's where we're at. We're kind of on a holding pattern.
If we were to make a motion tonight and pass it, to put it out to bid, this dealership has it, they probably don't want to hang on to it forever. Unfortunately, we're in our second meeting for August. I believe Labor Day is probably gonna bounce our
Be one of those
next.
situations, if you may want to have a special meeting just to review and accept the bids or not accept them. If in fact there's a chances you could lose that truck if it's still available and nobody else bids, so it may require a special meeting to consider it.
Would it be possible tonight to say if nobody else bids, can we approve the purchase of it?
I would not.
No, okay.
Okay, so we'll put the notice out for bid.
Okay. Bill, we'll put something together. I want you to look at, make sure everything's phrased right and worded right. Okay. And you got some business tonight. Okay. Anything else?
Not on service, no.
Okay. Anything other than the consent agenda, Lieutenant?
Just a couple things. We had 450 total incidents in Lafayette Township in July. 108 of those, over the last meeting, we had the request for speed enforcement in the 60 block of Lafayette and Ryan. 108 of those were radar enforcement, 60 traffic stops out of that, and we concentrated most of our Lafayette. The average speed isn't all that high, but there are definitely people who are exceeding. We did write our fair share of citations in that area. In July and August.
All right, thank you. Okay. Alice, anything outside of the consent agenda?
I know just the 7-month report so far, we've obtained $17,366,627 worth of new valuation of construction or things for against $11,980,000 for all of last year. So we're doing quite well. Same thing with the fees. So far through the end of July, we have $39,063.61 versus $21,036 for the whole year. Dollar General has taken possession. It's in their title now, the land.
The property is.
The
Okay.
property's now in their land, so that's, and they have requested the permit,
Okay.
so. Oh, and one other thing, I don't, excuse me.
I'm sorry, make sure we're getting it.
What?
Who is
Dollar
the-
General owns the property now, you said, Alice?
Yes,
Dollar General, the company, owns 6300 Lafayette
yes.
Road. Okay.
I have a copy. The other thing, I don't do Facebook or any of those crazy things, but apparently somebody's put out on one of those things that the golf course is putting 160-some homes on the corner there at Lake and Wedgewood, and that obviously is not true. There's 3 phases, and the 3 phases altogether is gonna be a total of 83, and that's spread over more land. It's not 160-some houses on that parcel there, just as an FYI,
Okay,
to clarify it.
thank you. Anything else?
No,
Okay. All right, any correspondence we need to share?
I have none.
Anything? Okay.
Hey, Marty, going back a little bit,
Yes,
if Dollar General now owns that property and they're applying for permits, who are they applying to for the permits? Who do they have to go to, say, they're applying for permits?
mm-hmm.
Who do they have to go to get that permit?
The building permit?
yeah. They have already applied to all the different agencies' permits that are required before I would write a permit for any house or business. They've gone and got the sewer, the water, the storm management, water thing, and the driveway access permit. They've got all those.
Okay.
Everything's there. The
So it's up
land
to
is
you
in
to
their
say yes,
name.
you got the permit, or no, you don't?
Pardon me?
So it's up to you to say yes, you have a permit, or no, you don't?
Again, if something has a legitimate use and they meet all the qualifications of our zoning, and that takes in quite a bit, then the township has the obligation to write the permit. We can't write a permit or refuse to write a permit because we think somebody's gonna do something bad. They may very well do something bad, but we cannot deny them something until they
Any
actually
chance you
do
could just
it.
drag your feet for a month or so, or 2 months, and just, it got lost with the paperwork like everything else does when you supply something to somebody?
My paperwork doesn't get dragged along or lost for months. I have it here, they sent in the check, all the paperwork that is needed for the township to write a permit is there. And I'm gonna have to go through and write a permit when this is, it's all approved.
Hi, my name's Stacy Bear. I spoke to Ty, I think it was last week. So apparently all those stakes are for Dollar General then? All of
The surveying for the turn lane,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
You were the one that called?
Yes, that was.
Yeah, I had no idea.
Yeah.
She called and wanted to know what all the flags were, and I
Well, because when
wasn't
he
sure.
called ODOT, they hadn't officially acquired the
Right.
property or anything. When he called ODOT, but obviously they were this close.
Well, I have a copy of the deed and everything, and if you go up to the auditor site, you will see that it has been changed over into their
Just
purchase.
Dollar General, or is there
Pardon me? A holding company usually does it for, rarely do these stores buy it, and they have an agency that does it. Here's the general warranty deed. It's been approved by the tax map people. Let's get more, let's see, I have a copy of the actual page from the auditor's office, I pulled that.
All right, so one, I guess last question, so I was kind of trying to get at before, so if you have not established, like, the actual permit has not been signed over or whatever, and you have the whole entire township, right? And I know we're a very small group of people who live in this township, but they approach you guys as the board, okay, and they, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe Ally had mentioned at some point that she had presented you guys with a list of questionable objections, okay, to our zoning and to whether or not this fits with inside those gray areas. Has anybody sitting at the table read through that entire email she sent you?
Is this
Right,
the one?
Is that true, or-
About as far as the gray areas where you. could
Because
go
there is
one
gray
way,
areas,
yeah.
that's what I was kind of trying to ask earlier. So you have these resolutions written into the zoning regulations that can be perceived one way or the other, depending on which perspective you're standing in, okay? I found those, okay, I maybe I'm overreading it, okay, but she found them as well, and she brought those to everybody's attention. And I just don't understand why that hasn't been talked about either.
Like heavily wooded areas, wildlife
Right, so,
habitat.
and when we talked with the zoning,
farmland.
person about it, they kind of just completely blew us off. So that's what, I guess that's where some of my frustration today lies in, because that's like, and again, my communication skills are very horrible today, I apologize for that. But the point is we've got a very large amount of the community that is concerned, okay, and we have potential options that go outside where, and I understand where you were coming from, the direction you're explaining. But it doesn't have to be that complicated, in my opinion, looking and reading through the entire zoning and going over this for the last 12 months of my life. I see areas in which if we wanted to change it as a township or we wanted to do something about this, we most definitely could. It's just depending on how deep we want to step into that gray area. But again, if anybody has any comments on what Ally emailed to you, I'd love to know if you read it, I'd love to know your responses on that before we close up on it.
I just got it last week and forwarded it on to Bill. And I haven't had a chance to respond yet.
Did anybody else get a chance to read it by chance? Sure. Did you copy,
Chris had it.
Alice?
Alice is on it.
Alice, did you happen to read that email this weekend? Or do you happen, or actually there was another one sent, I don't know if you read that one either.
Well, there's been numerous emails, but
Sure have.
basically, again, I hate to sound like a broken record, but the zoning allows for that type of use, retail use, which it is.
Would you be able to answer my question I had about the gray areas? Because we're well aware
Well,
that
the gray
it's
areas are
Your parameters.
gray, and I don't understand how you say the landscaping. Well, the site plan there, it has landscaping. I showed the site plan to the zoning board last week, and nobody could find anything wrong with it.
What about preserving heavily wooded lots or wildlife habitats or farmland that are all in our comprehensive plan and our zoning resolution?
Correct.
Well, I don't, you can ask the city of Medina how well landscaping
We're in
and
Lafayette.
wildlife plans go. You can't
We're in
enforce
Lafayette.
those.
But the
That's
answer
not
to that
the point.
basically, as I said before, the comprehensive plan is not the legal document that is reviewed in order to approve or disapprove. It is what was actually adopted based on the comprehensive plan.
Yeah, but the zoning resolutions as far as protecting heavily wooded lots and wildlife habitats and farmland, that's in a resolution. It's in both of them. So obviously it should mean something. The whole point, I think, behind all of this and the frustration with this isn't us like coming to mom and dad for permission. This is us coming to mom and dad for backup.
Right.
Have our backs.
Right.
You work for us. We voted the trustees in. I mean, that's how this works. Yes, Alice is appointed. But guess what? We voted you in. Back us up.
there's room to wiggle, and everybody I've asked to wiggle, I mean, other than, everybody's doing a little bit of due diligence to save face, I feel, in this, and that's my take on it, but I've been met with resistance from the zoning person in this room on every situation I've talked to her about this, to where it's, you're not gonna win, sit down, right? That's what I get from that. That's why I'm so curious to hear what you have to say about the fence, because again, I was told, when I asked about the fence, in the zoning, I waited till after the meeting, whatever, if there would be any type of fence or anything like that, a representative from Lafayette Township Zoning Department looked at me and said, well, I've never seen a Dollar General with a fence. So, I don't know, you know what I mean? And to me, again, I take that very abrasively as a resident, because, boy, that's a pretty simple, question in my brain, or concern, to be met with that type of, dismissal. It leads me to believe that maybe my voice doesn't really count, right? Because even though I'm concerned, I'm gonna be dismissed. Almost every avenue that I've approached, my wife's, she's a little more diligent. I ask a question, if you don't respond, or maybe I don't like the response, maybe I just, she's a little more, she's gonna get down to the bottom of it. But again, here she has tried. She's put pen to paper, she's, kind of said, hey, well, do we have an option here? Are we able to argue this or fight this? Is this a way to get the several people in this room, what they're asking for as township residents? And 4 weeks, 5 weeks now, has gone by, and nobody really wants to put the work in to answer that question.
State has to do it.
If I can answer that question.
Exactly.
I get it, man, I get it. I understand how the legislation works on all this.
Chris, you started to say
I think
something.
the asking for a fence is one of the better things to do. See if we can approach them about a fence,
Okay.
vegetation, shrubbery, signage, all those sorts of things. Now, they probably don't have to acquiesce to everything you ask for, but I think that's the best angle to do that, and that's what I wanted to talk about tonight.
Well, that's great news. Yeah, I was completely misled the last time I had this conversation with one of our township, members.
You may get something out of it, you may not, I don't,
Sure.
but it's worth, those are the things, if we can't stop them, at least try to make it as.
Okay, well, again, I would like to speak with somebody, I suppose, at the end of the meeting then, because, to maybe help me out in that regard.
Yeah.
Okay.
But there's a difference, just as you remember, there's a difference between asking and being able to require it. And that's probably what they were responding to you before, that it can't be required.
I'm well aware of how I asked it, and I said,
Okay,
yeah, is there any way we can go about talking to them about putting up a fence?
okay.
And the response was, Alice, I've never seen a Dollar General with a fence.
That wasn't my entire response.
No, it was the
I
response.
have not seen one with the fence. Our township does not require fencing in commercial. The only place we require fencing is in HOA housing developments. So whether a business wants to put a fence in or doesn't, that's totally up to them. We do not have it in our regulations to compel them to do it. And that's what I told you, but you're taking 4 or 5 words out of the explanation.
Okay, I'm going to.
Requested then?
I'm gonna become very unpopular now, and I'm gonna cut our discussion at this point. I don't wanna not let people speak their mind, but we're circling back over the same ground over and over and over again. Trustee O'Neill has some things I guess you're gonna discuss
Yeah,
with, okay.
after the meeting.
But let's kinda move it along here. Okay? All right. Anything else under correspondence?
No.
Okay. Fire. I missed that on the agenda. I deleted one line too many. Anything new, special, exciting, other than what you had on the consent agenda, Chief?
Just a couple of things to highlight. We're planning an open house to coincide with Fire Prevention Week, October 9th from 1 to 5. The tentative, we're still working on details. We wanted to kind of get the word out on that. And then also the night at the races. The Fire Association's doing night at the races. September 24th, so tickets and opportunities there as well. So those are the two big highlights, I guess.
You took one of my pieces of thunder, but thank you very much. One of the Fire Association members gave me a brochure. Night of the Races, it's a great fundraiser. The Fire Association puts it on. If you're interested in buying any tickets to go to the event, it's a lot of fun. You can either, I'll give you an email and a phone number both. Email would be to K Wiseman, Wiseman, @LafayetteTownship.com. Or if you would prefer phone, 216-905-7123. Did I get all that right, Kelly?
Yeah, please don't put it in the newspaper.
Well, you're getting great advertising like that. Okay. All right, anything else, Chief? Were you advised, I think I told you, but maybe I didn't, the car that we talked about, the old police vehicle, you've been authorized to sell it to Smithfield for $1. But they have to take, it's all theirs now. Okay? That is correct, isn't it, Bill? From what we talked about.
You can negotiate as long as
Okay.
another government, you can sell it to whoever you want.
All right. Okay. Old business. We brought this up a couple meetings ago, the snowplow agreement with, with the Village of Chippewa Lake. We have a resolution 18-2022. Lafayette Township, be it resolved that by the Board of Trustees, Lafayette Township Board of Trustees hereby renews the following hourly rate increase to $95. The agreement of services for Lafayette Township Service Department with the Village of Chippewa Lake. This applies not just to snow plowing, but to general services as well. We have the contract here, the new contract with the new amounts. I would make a motion that we approve this resolution. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Okay, hearing none, motion passes. Okay. Senior snowplow program.
Yeah, so Rick and I went over the senior snowplow program, and what I'd like to do is just have Sherry put the application up on the website so folks can see it and apply for those services if they so choose, but nothing to change on it.
Okay. Is everybody familiar with our senior snowplow program? Is anybody familiar with it? Yes. Is anybody still with me? Okay. All right. The senior snowplow program, very briefly, helps our seniors that are financially at a certain level, that if they get snowbound and have an emergency, they have to be able to get out of their home. We will, after we make sure all roads are clear, send someone from the service department over and clear their driveways out so they have emergency access. Things like needing to get to a hospital, if they have an appointment at the VA or at the hospital if they can't get out. But it's only if it's over 3 inches of snow. There's a whole set of requirements. Sherry has them all down, so if you know anybody in the township that would fall into those categories, please have them contact Sherry. It's it's a great thing to do. Rick loves doing it. It gets his motor running, so don't throw rocks. Okay. Odot meeting.
Yeah, so I just put Odot meeting on there because there was a number of things that I wanted to talk to them about, and one of them was obviously the safety issue where the Dollar General's supposedly supposed to go. And I did say, there's a school there. Is it chartered? There's buses there dropping kids off. Does it matter? It matters. I don't know. But we're not done with that yet. But so hopefully she comes out with some sort of a speed study and helps us if it all goes to fruition. So that was the first and most important thing that I wanted to talk to her about. And then I did talk to her about semis going up and down, over the road truckers, semis, going up and down Ryan Road, Ballish Road, going towards Medina Industrial Parkway. I said, here we are, we didn't do Ryan Road this year, but that was gonna cost us $500,000, and you're letting over-the-road truckers drive on our township roads. This, put them on the state road. And so she's gonna see what she can do to let us put some signs up in there right away. No promises, but we'll see on that. Which is a big concern because they are tearing up our roads. And then the third thing I talked to her about was no engine brakes in Lafayette Township. And she thought that was a pretty easy process. I did email the application to the trustees, other trustees to look at and read, and we can discuss it next meeting. But she didn't think we would need as many signs if we approve it, just because our neighboring Montville has signs already on that side, so it would kind of cut ours down. But, hopefully that goes through. And then I talked to another individual at Odot about our emergency exit approach out here that's still not complete when the fire station was built. And they're gonna reach out to the deputy director of Odot and see what proper verbiage we need to put into play to get that opened up. He didn't think there should be an issue if it's exit only, so I'm waiting for word back on that. So those were the four things that I was talking with Odot about.
Thank you. All right, the next item is the electric co-op. We've talked about that the last couple of meetings. That was contracting with a service that was supposedly going to guarantee us a lower rate. I was able to go back, you can only go 1 month at a time because apparently the electric company doesn't hold commercial rates more than just a month. They don't hold past rates. But for the last month and for this month, the difference would have been tenths or I think several hundredths of a cent difference per kilowatt hour. There is no fee they charge for it, but we would be locked in with them. And over a 2-month span, it doesn't seem like they were quoting thousands of dollars of savings. It didn't show up anywhere, at least from everything I saw. I sent you guys all the same information. I don't know if any other, maybe I missed something.
I didn't realize any either.
Okay. So do we want to, the contract expired in June, we're on month to month now. I get about 7 calls a day asking if we're gonna continue this or not. Do we want to continue? Do we want to just dissolve the contract? If we do, we just go back to the electric company and get a standard bill from them. What would we like to do?
I would be to let it go.
Okay?
That's my preference.
So a motion to say we cancel the contract with, do you remember the name of the place?
NG.
NG? Okay. With NG for electric service, just go back to the electric company directly? A motion for that? Do you have a second for it?
Yeah, I'll second.
Okay, all those in
Well,
favor?
wait a minute, can you make the actual motion?
I did. That's
You
what-
made the motion?
Yeah, I made the motion.
Okay,
I'm sorry.
Okay, I'm sorry, I thought you were saying Chris to make it,
No.
okay.
Just got yelled at by Karen.
I
I
know.
second you, Marty.
Thank you. Sorry. All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, same sign? Okay.
There was one other old business, sorry. Main Drive in Chippewa is actually gonna start here soon, but I need to ask the board, I need to have another public meeting with those residents that are involved. Oh, that's new, it's not a new business, it's old business to me because I've been working on it for months, so I'll just continue. So the project was almost cut in half because they didn't have enough money to do the roads that they were supposed to do, and the township had pitched in money to help with this project. But I went to the county commissioners and got more money, so the project's gonna go to its completion. However, they're only gonna do the main drag first this fall. They're gonna replace the bridge this fall. Next spring, they'll go back and put the second layer on Main Drive and then continue the road from Main Drive to the bridge. Then it will be complete, so I do need to bring the residents in that are involved to
Good plan. Let them know what's going
let
on.
them know what's going on.
Okay. Anything else new? Chris?
Nope.
Laura?
No.
Karen? Okay. All right, we do not have a need for an executive session, correct? All right. Based on that, I move that we pay the warrants to the township and adjourn. Do we have a second?
A second?
All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Thank you all very much. Please keep coming to the meetings. What you say is important, and we do listen. It may not always sound like it, but we do.
I'm assuming the one on the 5th is going to wind up being canceled, though?
That's Labor Day.
Yes, yes.
Make that.
Well,
Damn, I forgot to say that.
I know the meeting's closed, but I had asked you previously about the police levy that's going to be up. Early voting starts in less than 60 days. The next meeting will be less than 30 days before. Can at the next meeting,
Yeah.
can we at least get a commitment on what you guys are going to do, whether it's, you're going to give it to the sheriff, whether you're going to stay with the city?
That we will, yeah, I've sent out pretty much all the information, so all the trustees know. We should be able to discuss that at the next meeting, yes. Because I agree, I would like to have everybody know where we're gonna go, so there's no surprises. I mean, you're same camp.
All right, thank you.
All right. All right.